Hi, this is BK Black Krishna for manfulwars.com, where I'm promoting polite patriotism to help nice ladies and gents teach kids to be, look, talk, and feel great, and locally discuss and share great online info offline as better people making better places to live. So check out manfulwars.com for more on that. The online info war is great, or often censored into digital ghettos. The offline info war with meetings, meet and greet tables, posters, flyers, and more is essential to reach out to people and not just talk to like-minded people and then find it hard to talk offline and really connect and respect each other. So manforwars.com for more on that. But this video is called Save Trans Kids, 6,000 Deaths, Lower IQs, and Promote Politicians with Balls. So 6,000 deaths, lower IQs, and promote politicians with balls. Now, in today's culture, where we're supposed to be, oh, what? Okay, yeah, of course, whatever you say, yeah, of course, I don't want some lying bitchy bully to get even more lying bitchy bully mad at me. You're just supposed to go along with this crap. And so that's why it's really important for us to share information like this online and offline to kind of get the word out with some facts, not just feelings, not just that's gross, that's child abuse, that's wrong. Although all that's true and all that's valid, there's some facts and data to back it up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through 3 articles, 2 from Breitbart and 1 from gender.news, part of Mike Adams' natural news site, to kind of back this up. So this first article from Breitbart, so I don't bury the lead here, is FDA, thousands of deaths linked to puberty blockers. And it's from Breitbart News. And basically, this article talks about how they're using Lupron, a prostate cancer drug that's supposed to be used by men in their 60s to sort of beat prostate cancer. They're using that to stop kids from going through puberty, and as a hormone blocker for kids that identify as trans. And the FDA, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, has listed over 6,000 deaths, plus tens of thousands of other adverse reactions. And so I'll get into that by going through this article. The next article I'd like to share from gender.news, great website. It says here, dumbing down the population. Study finds that transgender hormone treatments lower IQ. And again, this is a medical study showing how these drugs that the children who identify as trans and are going through with the hormone therapy and so on, the drugs that they use for that actually affect the way you grow. I mean, hormonal development isn't just physical, it's mental, and mental is part of your physical. Your brain inside your thick skull is growing as well. And so when you start to retard normal hormonal development in young people, 5, 6, 7, 10, 12, 13, 14, pubertal development, you not only retard them physically, but you can also retard people mentally. And finally, I'm going to show you Arizona House Speaker Rusty Bowers, radicalized sex ed, grooming children to be sexualized. And this is about the speaker in the Arizona state legislature in the United States, basically saying giving kids all this sexual information is not only confusing a bunch into thinking that they might be trans, might be this, might be that, with a whole bunch of gender fluid ideas out there, but it's actually grooming them for pedophiles. And the FBI's own manuals say pedophiles often do this. They'll give kids incrementally more and more inappropriate sexual information to kind of put it in their brain, make them familiar with it, soften them up, and then have sex with them. So if the lifeguard at the local pool is saying to your little kid, hey, little boy, have you seen what a grown man's penis looks like? No, I haven't, Mr. Lifeguard. Well, it's got a lot more hair on it than yours does. Ha, ha, ha. It goes away. That's not just an inappropriate joke. That is a form of pedophile grooming, where someone in a position of authority is giving kids inappropriate sexual information to make them more open to sexual activity. And this is how the FBI and other law enforcement agencies say pedophiles do this. So aside from confusing kids into being trans and possibly dying, suffering other health risks, really regretting it, feeling suicidal, and so on, not only lowering their IQ or taking advantage of kids with low IQs, like autistic kids and others, and convincing them that, hey, you don't get enough attention, right? Try this. You'll get a lot more attention, as we got to do special care for you, and everyone's got to get excited. We found one. We found a little trans jelly bean, and so on. We need to promote politicians that push back against this. This is what a normal politician representing normal people would do. Say, this is insane, this is crazy, I'm an adult, I'm in a position of power and authority, and this is what I should be saying, and I should be reflecting the body politic. Because we all know that what we need to do is we need to build up public support, get some independent and mainstream media support, and then with all that behind us, we can approach politicians, and then we can make political changes. For example, that's how a lot of people get the fluoride out of their water supply in different jurisdictions, for the ones that don't use it or the ones that were using it and then managed to stop. That's generally speaking how all political changes are made. We need to get better politicians and better policies so we can have better places to live. And we need to be better people to be able to do that. Otherwise, we'll just have corrupt sellouts. We'll have people that are afraid of different lobby groups, including the LGBT mafia lobby group. Nothing against normal people. If most people straight are great at it, LGBTQ can be too. But with the weakening of normal straight people and the allowance of sort of miserable, lying, bitchy, sketchy bullying going on, the worst people are sort of allowed to take over. And this could happen with any group that you put above reproach with political correctness, and as part of that process above the law, because the law doesn't want to touch them because of political correctness, right? So it could be any group. It could be brown guys with blue shirts and red, black, and brown ties, right? Or whatever, orange, whatever. The point is that if somebody's like, yep, don't say anything, you know that guy, don't say anything, then my own criminal instincts might start to take over. So I'm like, you mean I can walk into this store and just grab something and walk out without paying for it, and none of you can say anything? And because of political correctness and the fact that eventually influences the law too, you won't say anything and you won't charge me. And then if I do get charged, they'll say, well, he's a brown guy, got a blue shirt, red, black, and brown tie. What are you going to do about those people, right? So it could be me or it could be anybody else, but all it does is it empowers criminals in those groups to do whatever the hell they want, right? There might be a million migrants, right? And you're like, well, okay, 80-90% are probably decent people, but 100,000 put above reproach and above the law will rob, rape, and murder people. And it's the same thing with the LGBT mafia, the LGBTQ mafia. And broadly speaking, globalist, super rich people that want to run the world, they attack gender so much because it means that we can't respect each other like ladies and gents and teach kids do, which means we can't communicate well, which means we're easier to control. So that's a real baseline standard. If you wonder where all these attacks are coming from, nationalists trying to save their countries, protect their cultures, their borders, their economies, their sovereignty, and respect their history and be a unique, proud people, battling against globalism, which wants a one world government under the United Nations, that type of thing. That's why these attacks are so prevalent and so important. Excuse me. Is because if you could make it normal for people not to have self-respect or be able to respect each other, like, ladies and gentlemen, so that guy's a good guy. How do I know? Doesn't lie. Looks me in the eye. Not sheepish, sideways. What should I do? I'm gay washed and trans washed and girls washed. Guys are supposed to be more like girls, so maybe I should try and act kind of girly, but I got nothing girly to show off, so maybe I'll just make you uncomfortable. Or girls trying to act more like guys. Hey, yep, tough as you. He's like, well, yeah, as a man, I'm just kind of shrink from that. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? I want to be nice with a nice girl who's good company. She's happy, I'm happy. We keep it moving. We deal with whatever we got to deal with, or we say hello and we keep it moving. But you attack all that, and it means people don't respect each other enough to communicate well, easier to control. So broadly speaking, that's why all this is being done, right? And so now I'll go over these articles, and I'll show you kind of what the latest is on this, and hopefully we can do something valuable with it. And feel free to like, subscribe, comment, share, get in touch with questions, ways to work together, or financial support as you'd like. BK Black Krishna from manforwars.com. See more info there as well. The first article here from Breitbart News. FDA, Food and Drug Administration, the federal administration responsible for policing food and drugs. So not just some quack doing whatever. Thousands of deaths linked to puberty blockers by Dr. Susan Berry from October 2nd, 2019. All right. And I'll put a link to that below. Susan Berry. You can see Susan Berry. There you go. It says here, the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, has documented thousands of deaths. Deaths. Now, you can say messing with your puberty could be really bad for your health and possibly kill you. But people could say, oh, don't be transphobic. Let these kids express themselves. It'll be even worse if they grow up to be nice, happy boys or girls, maybe possibly gay or lesbian later on after they finish puberty and they kind of settle on that. You can say, oh, you're scum. You should let them at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old decide to take a bunch of dangerous chemicals to mess with their body, make them infertile and incapable of ever having kids again, that sort of thing, right? But you can now say, no, listen, it's deaths. The FDA has proven it because of the drugs they're using, which weren't tested, and this is the test. This is the test. If you say, why would you pull thalidomide off the market? It was a drug given in the 1960s to women to help them sleep, and babies came out having flippers. They didn't have full arms and legs in many cases. They had kind of little flippers, and they tracked that back to thalidomide, and they said, oh, don't give that drug to women to help them sleep while they're pregnant. This is what happens to their kids, right? This is a perfect way to say, get those puberty-blocking drugs the hell out of here. We've already done the tests. We did tests we didn't do tests in safe clinical settings with willing participants. We did this with brainwashed masses, and we're bullying everyone into not talking about it. And that's super dangerous. And adults, on behalf of kids and men especially, this is your area, right? If you're looked at like you're a piece of crap, it's because all this crap's going on, and who's supposed to do something about it, right? So this really is on men out there to take leadership roles on these issues. Anyway, so the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, has documented thousands of deaths linked to the puberty-blocking drugs now increasingly given to children who suffer from gender dysphoria or claim to be, quote, transgender. Between 2013 and June 2019, FDA recorded 41,213 adverse events, including 6,379 deaths and 25,645, quote, serious reactions in patients who took the hormone blocker known as Lupron, the same drug given to children who say their gender identity is not consistent with their biological sex. And there's a shot of the quote, and below that, the FDA chart. It says here, leuprolide acetate, known as Lupron, is clinically approved for treatment of prostate cancer in men, endometriosis in women, and, for a short period of time, quote, precocious puberty, a condition in which children begin puberty at a significantly younger age than is considered normal. So in an emergency situation where a kid is, a 6-year-old girl is having her period, you might be like, this is insane. They should be, 10 years old or whatever. We should put her on this for a short period of time to see if we can stop that. But this should not be used as part of an ongoing experiment to constantly mess with your puberty and mess with your hormones as children, right? So Lupron is also being used without formal FDA approval as a puberty blocker on the increasing number of children and adolescents who are being diagnosed in the US and the UK with gender dysphoria. And gender dysphoria is a psychological condition where you're not comfortable in your own skin, and instead of trying to change your skin, or like in the classic Nicolas Cage movie, take your face off, you should find a way to be comfortable in your skin. Now, failing all those other checks and balances and safeguards, and at an appropriate age and in an appropriate mood, so you're not just doing this because you're depressed and then thinking it'll make you happy and then doing it and then still being depressed, and now you're a man that now cosmetically is looking more like a woman and you're even more depressed, right? Because it didn't work to make you happy. That's often what happens. But it's you know, when it comes to gender dysphoria these days, it's, oh, stick them in the change gender machine. That's the best thing. It's like, that's insane. This is being done with the support of the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Endocrine Society, despite the fact that there is no evidence that such hormonal treatments actually benefit children and adolescents with gender dysphoria. And by no evidence, meaning doesn't make you happy. Right? Doesn't make you happy. That's the bottom line. They've even, a transgender group, even did a study of over 17,000 transgenders living in the United States. And they found, they were trying to help them out. They're like, we need some data to see what you guys are up to and what you need. They found that there was that 40% had attempted suicide. And there was many other health risks and mental health risks and social concerns and so on. And it's not because people are treating them badly. There is no, they can always call the cops, they can always do this, always do that, and whatever, right? It's because they're not comfortable in their own skin, and people near them can't be comfortable, and they never feel like they're quite doing it right. That's a huge part of it. In a few rare cases, it's possible. But again, you got to be old enough. You got to be of sound mind. You got to have made sure you taken care of all sorts of underlying conditions. And then, if you're in a good mood and you're an adult and you're able to look at this information, including information that's critical of it, and then after all that, you're like, I tried everything. I know everything. I still want to go through radical hormone changes and possibly have radical surgical changes done to my body, get rid of my existing genitalia, fashion some new genitalia, get fake breasts or chop mine off, whatever. If you've gone through all that, then, okay, not stupid. You don't seem stupid. We looked at the smartest ways to have checks and balances on this type of behavior. And if after all that you still want to do it, go for it. You'll probably do it well, right? Girl will probably do it well, be good at being a guy, work on a construction site, kind of grunt. Other guys like, doing it all right, right? Guy turning to a girl, be appropriate for her age, looks, relationship situations in terms of how she acts, fine. But those cases are very rare, and you got to go through all these checks and balances first, and nothing for kids. And this is a damn good reason why, this study, among others. And despite the fact the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Endocrine Society are supporting the use of this drug that killed thousands of kids, right? There are other groups like acpeds.org, acpeds.org, the American College of Pediatricians, that is a splinter group away from the American Academy of Pediatrics of several hundred pediatricians who are like, this is crazy. Here's lots of reasons why it's crazy. We're pediatricians. We're not just saying that because it's gross. Here's a whole bunch of studies of trans people over the years, trans kids over the years, gender dysphoria over the years. So look up acpeds.org and the work of Dr. Michelle Cretella, Michelle, Cretella. She was even on Tucker Carlson talking about this for 5 minutes on Fox News. And you can see the great work they've done as a body of pediatricians. So if you're like, well, why did this small group of pediatricians, say 500 or so, why did they come up with their own organization when there's the American Academy of Pediatrics that has tens of thousands of pediatricians, like 30, 50,000 pediatricians? Well, because the only people that were consulted when it comes to the American Academy of Pediatrics weren't those tens of thousands of pediatricians. They were just the 30 members of the board, right? So there's a leadership group of this American Academy of Pediatrics, and that leadership consists of like 30 people, and they were bought off. They were, bought and paid for. They were corrupted, sold out. They were bullied into it, and they made the decision to say tens of thousands of pediatricians are okay with this. But they didn't ask their tens of thousands of pediatrician members. And that's a key to understand how official groups, because they can say, oh, the American Academy of Pediatrics, we've got tens of thousands of pediatricians, and they're totally fine with this. They think this is the best thing for children. Bullshit. You didn't ask them. You, at the top, it's like a corrupt union. It's like if the union is corrupt, they can sell out the membership. It's the same thing here, right? And this is big business, as you'll see later on in this article. So, back to this article. The American College of Pediatricians has compiled significant research on the effects of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones on children, right? And this is the American College. That's acpeds.org. That's the splinter group of pediatricians that formed mainly to battle this issue, because they love kids, they take care of kids, and they think this is child abuse. They call it child abuse, and they split off from the main group of pediatricians to expose the corruption in this area. And so they've got a lot of research on puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and so on. Complications related to the drug's use include malignant tumors, cardiovascular events such as heart attacks and blood clots, suicidal behavior, and other psychological disorders, brittle bones and painful joints, and sterility. And you can just imagine, right? If you're a normal adult and you've got normal bone density, right? Because you didn't have the same bone. I couldn't make the same fist that could punch through a door. I couldn't do this at the age of 11. When I was 11, I was growing into having this fist. But if I retarded my pubertal growth and blocked the hormones that were helping me turn into a man, then of course I might never be able to have a fist that could do that, because my bones might be brittle. And this is one of the issues. And sterility, of course. Never have kids again. They just take away the option. And should kids 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 years old be allowed to make a decision like this with all these health issues, and to say, well, you're 5 years old. You know what? If you decide as a boy you want to change into a girl, or vice versa, you'll never be able to have kids again. You'll be deprived of one of the great joys of being a human for thousands of years. You cool with that, little 5-year-old girl? I don't know. I'm eating a crayon. Good stuff. We'll call that a yes. It's insane. Completely insane. Back to this article. Dr. Jane Orient, Executive Director of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, confirmed to Breitbart News in email comments that while some of the deaths reported by the FDA could have been patients who died of prostate cancer, the problem is that very little is known about the use of Lupron, quote, to treat healthy children, deliberately to block normal maturation. Lupron is off-label for lack of long-term studies, she added. She says here, it undoubtedly causes irreversible loss of fertility and many other adverse effects that are potentially lethal. It does not turn a male child into a female child, only into a eunuch who will lose his full potential for growth and strength. Children have no capacity to comprehend these long-term consequences, so the use of this drug in gender-confused children constitutes unethical experimentation. Informed consent is not possible. So this is Dr. Jane Orient, Executive Director of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, in an email to Breitbart News. Back to this article, and this is where one of the big drivers, and again, there's people with social engineering goals that want weaker populations and want to possibly depopulate and want to divide and conquer people, and that's kind of higher up. And then how they get people to achieve that is bribery, corruption, and so on. So if you got a bunch of satanic pedophile elites, the people that hung out with Jeffrey Epstein and were serviced by Jeffrey Epstein, who was pimping little kids to super rich people, right? You obviously, you're greedy, you want money, you want whatever, but you also want to divide and conquer and confuse and control people so they never catch you. right? And so that you can maintain your dominance. They don't find out how corrupt and evil and scummy you are, because pedophilia is their main tool to corrupt, bribe, and blackmail people. You don't want normal people rebelling against you, so you've got to hold them down. You've got to control them, right? Now, to get normal people below that level to go along with the agenda, you've got the almighty dollar, right? It's like, these people want to put this, in the water and food supply to make us less fertile, make us dumb, make us this, make us that, screw us up, make us whatever crazy, right? These other people get paid to look the other way or to make it happen. And that's basically what's going on here, right? So back to this article, it says here, gender transitioning hormone treatments have been successful for pharmaceutical companies. In 2017, AbbVie, which produces Lupron, observed sales of the drug were $669 million just in the United States alone. California-based endocrinologist and specialist on childhood gender dysphoria, Dr. Michael Laidlaw, has noted the medical industry is looking at a, quote, windfall as a result of patients seeking out treatment for gender dysphoria. He goes on, big pharma, big hospital systems, surgical centers, and doctors seek to gain huge profits, Laidlaw said. Lupron, monthly is $775 alone. That's a $27,000, quote, pause button at 5 years of age. Multiply this together with the huge rise in cases documented or observed in Western nations, and a major windfall is to be had, right? So that's for if you want to put your little 5-year-old boy on Lupron to stop him from his boy hormones from kicking in, and see if, and then start pumping him full of girl hormones as well, because that's what you think is good for him. Well, that's $775 a month, $27,000 a year, and you're like, well, who can afford that? Well, some people can, some people can't. But because of the corruption in our system, pushing for this, and because of the politically correct sensitivity around this issue, and because LGBT whatever are seen as a protected class, and kids and so on, it's possibly going to be covered by taxpayer dollars as part of the National Healthcare Service in the UK, in the United Kingdom, as part of the Canadian Public Health Service in Canada, as part of American health services and insurance companies and so on. So, this means that you might say, well, it's great that they're covered. Well, no, it means that they can charge whatever they want, and the costs eventually, from a fiscal and social perspective, screw the rest of us. So keep in mind, this is big business, and if everyone had to pay for this, and there was no major health companies, services, insurance, or health services covering this, then either people wouldn't do it, or the price would drop down, or people would look into it more. But by making it, often making it publicly funded, the drug companies can be like, yep, $775 a month. That's what it costs. Yep. It's like, who the hell has that to spend on a pill for your 5-year-old kid to change his gender, right? And as feminist Camille Paglia has noted, and she's an intellectual and feminist, she's talked about how a lot of university students are faced with a really tough, horrible decision, right? Because in universities and colleges in the United States, gender transition drugs and surgery are often covered by your university health insurance plan. And yet, if you leave that university and you're in the private sector, and you don't have health insurance that covers that anymore, then you might have to pay for it yourself. And if you're just getting out of college, you're in a lot of debt, you're starting a new job, you may not have the money for that. So there are gender confused kids, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, that are concerned. They're under a lot of pressure. There's 18-year-old boys, 19, 20, 21, thinking, I think I want to be a girl. I think I want to be a girl, but I'm not sure. I think I want to be a girl, but I'm not sure. But I think I want to be a girl, but I'm not sure. Man, I got to make this decision before I leave school. Otherwise, school won't pay for it. So the kids are being rushed into this decision at all ages, from little kids to college age students. And this is something we need to battle against. So back to this article. However, while Lupron may be therapeutic for men coping with prostate cancer, Laidlaw emphasized in an interview with the Christian Post that, quote, gender dysphoria is not an endocrine condition, but a psychological one, and should therefore be treated with proper psychological care. Means thinking you might be a different gender is not a condition of your hormones. It's not like, well, you've got a thyroid problem, so you need to take these things. You get some. It's in your head. And so it should be treated as in your head, not be treated with, oh, you think you want to be a girl? Here's some drugs. It's like, no, you think you want to be a girl? Slow down. Let's get to the bottom of what your issues were, what happened to you, were you molested as a kid? Was there some confusion? Let's do some therapy. If we can get you to the point where you're comfortable in your own skin, you don't have to have all these health risks, and you're straight, or maybe you decide to be gay, that's one thing. But if we skip all that, and we're just like, yep, prescription for drugs, take the drugs for a few months, then, if you're interested, we'll book you in for the surgery, done. That's corrupted big business on behalf of evil people that want to screw us up, right? So back to this article, he warned nevertheless that once puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones are injected into children, and, quote, endocrine condition in these children will develop. So he's saying you're going to get some hormonal issues once you start messing with your hormones. Duh, right? St. Louis-based pediatric endocrinologist Dr. Paul Hrues also told the Christian Post there is much that is unknown about giving hormone blockers like Lupron to children. And keep in mind, these are two quotes given to the Christian Post. Why isn't this the Washington Post? Why isn't this the New York Times? Why isn't this CNN? Why isn't this one of the major news organizations, the CBC in Canada, the Guardian, or BBC in the United Kingdom, and so on, right? Why is it the Christian Post, right? And this is also why, you should trust outlets like the Christian Post, or, for example, LifeSite News, LIFESITE news.com, right? They do a great job. And they are both Christian-based organizations, but they don't just talk about the Bible. They don't just quote the Bible. They don't just try and preach to the converted Christianity. They cover news, lifesitenews.com. They cover news, and they do it from a moral perspective. So you might be like, well, Christian, I'm not a Christian. I don't know, religion, this and that. Oh, you believe in Jesus. No, hold on. All right, you trust the New York Times? Your kid's dead. So it's better to trust news organizations that have some moral bent to them. And this is also why attacks on religion in general are not bad. You don't have to be religious per se, but if you don't respect religion, you don't respect tradition, you don't respect different institutions, you don't respect where you live, eventually you don't respect yourself, you don't respect each other, and you're a mess easier to control. So it's not like you should simply reject it because these are quotes from doctors given to the Christian Post, nor should anybody reject organizations that have religious affiliations and that often do good work from a moral perspective. Because the New York Times is not looking for these quotes on these thousands of deaths when it comes to kids. The Christian Post is, and that's valuable. So back to Dr. Paul Hrues, St. Louis-based pediatric endocrinologist, about hormone blockers like Lupron to children, as told to the Christian Post, and there's a hyperlink here as well. Quote, it's often claimed that medical blockade of puberty allows a child more time to sort out issues of their gender identity, that it alleviates dysphoria in affected children, and that it makes it easier if and when they choose to go on and get other treatments, namely surgery or sex change surgery, he said. It's also claimed that it's completely safe and reversible. Yeah, they can always say, oh, you can always switch back. Just try it. Oh, you're thinking of turning into a girl? Well, let's slow down your boy hormones for a bit, right? Maybe start giving you some girl hormones for a bit. And then later on, if you don't like it, we can just, you can't mess with your body's balance that effectively, right? It's hard enough after age 25 when the brain stops developing. You've definitely, finished puberty. You've definitely stopped growing. By age 25, you're pretty much formed into an adult. And even as a fully grown adult, messing with your body's chemistry can be dangerous. But imagine when it comes to children, messing with children's chemistry, right? It's tough enough. If you're a heroin addict at 25, 35, 45, 55 years old, or an alcoholic, or some other addiction to drugs that's messing with your body's chemistry, or some other factors, or some work environment conditions, that's something that could take a lot to recover from. You could have the shakes on methadone, or you could have trouble sleeping, insomnia, other things, getting off alcohol addiction, even cigarette addiction, right, can be really tricky for people. And that's grown-ass adults. When it comes to messing with children's body chemistry, it's even crazier. And that's why, Dr. Paul Ruse is making the point that they're claiming this is totally fine and safe and reversible. That's irresponsible and insane on its face. Even without evidence, you could just look at it as a smart adult, not a doctor, nothing like that, just as a smart adult. And that's also why, in this world full of experts, where we're all supposed to have experts who tell everyone what to do, it's important not to just trust experts, but in fact, to trust experts who question other experts. So if you got a whole bunch of doctors saying, take your flu shot, okay, doctors saying take your flu shot. Look at the other doctors questioning the flu shot, questioning the vaccine issue in general. Talking about how the flu virus changes all the time, changes every year. The flu shot that you get in the vaccine that was prepared 6 months ago may not have the same virus antibodies in there to deal with whatever strains of flu you might run into 6 months later, as the many types of flu viruses keep evolving. The various health risks associated with it, the ones associated with vaccines in general. The theory might be good of vaccines, but the practice involves a lot of corruption. And if they make you sicker with vaccines and you need more pharma drugs later, hey, might be a coincidence or might be part of the plan. So in a world full of experts, you can't just say, well, I'm not a doctor, well, I'm not a climate scientist, well, I'm not an engineer, well, I'm not a lawyer. Yeah, but are you a moron? If you're not a moron, then you don't have to just say, well, I'm not this, I'm not that. You're like, well, I'm not, there are journalists who are like, well, I'm not a doctor, but I wrote an article or a book, with evidence and information from dozens of doctors and scientists. So just because you're not a doctor or not an expert in that field doesn't mean that you've got to be cowed by experts in that field, especially when many of them have been proven forever to be corruptible and in many cases corrupt. So on its face, it's insane to say, oh, it's all safe, it's all fine. And we haven't really tested it before. We don't have a lot of examples. We're not going to tell you about a lot of the pros and cons, a lot of the cases of it's safe. Just trust us. And if you don't trust us, you're transphobic. That's bullying. That's corrupt bullying. Back to the quote from Hruze, or back to this point about Hruze. Hruze noted Lupron does influence bone density, and since adolescence is a time when young people accumulate the bone mass essential for the rest of their lives, there is cause for concern about whether a young person can gain back bone density once they go off the drug. So yeah, can you grow? Can you get that back, right? And I'll tell you, there's an example of an Australian boy on Australian TV, and he's there with his mem, and his mom, and this is a news story, a little short 5-minute news story. You can find it on YouTube somewhere, wherever, right? And there's many stories like this, but this is one example. It's an Australian boy who's like 12 or 13 years old, who's being interviewed by a reporter on Australian mainstream television, like a year ago or something. And he's saying that when he was a little kid, a little 5, 6, 7-year-old kid, or whatever, he said he, started hearing about all the gender dysphoria out there and the gender confusion and gender fluidity and how much attention it's getting and how positive and how celebrated it was. And this little boy decided that, hey, I think I want to be a girl, right? Kids want attention. This is a great way to get attention. Look at who the TV is giving attention to. Look at who the education system, the media, is giving it. Look at we have to treat these people special. Oh, they're special people. Why can't I be special? Screw this. I want to switch, right? So, so through some brainwashing, confusion, whatever, the little boy decided he wanted to be a girl, right? And now, at the age of 12 or 13, he and his mom are in front of a news reporter saying, now I want to switch back. I actually don't want to be a girl anymore. I want to be a boy, right? And now he's got breasts, small breasts, 12, 13-year-old girl breasts on a 12, 13-year-old boy. Now he's got to have surgery to get rid of the breasts. He's got to pump different hormones in him to get rid of those other hormones. He's got to try, because basically what happened is, as a little, 5, 6, 7-year-old boy, he was little, he's confused, dad's kind of probably weak, quiet, weak, lying, bitchy, sketchy man, messed up. Oh, you know how it is, whatever. Weak man. And mom is shrill, bitchy woman. Oh, life is suffering. We'll get through this. I can't believe I'm stuck with this piece of shit, right? Whatever. Some of those factors might have been there, right? Among a variety of others. And so, possibly through weak father, misidentifying with mother, not separating from the close bond with mom around 3, 4, 5 years old. As kids get more physical, when you're 1, 2 years old, you need mom all the time. You can barely go anywhere, right? So she's got to hold you, she's got to breastfeed you, she's got to do this for you, whatever. And then at 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, you start running, you start going here, you start realizing, wow, I can freak the hell out of mom. All right, so you start leaving the bond with mom, and you start gravitating more towards the father. You want to emulate more the dad. That's typically what boys do, right? As a form of independence. They identify with the mom more when they're 1, 2, 3, 4 years old, and then around 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, they start going, okay, not a mom, not a girl, mom's great, but I want to be like that guy, right? And so possibly there was a lack of a strong male role model that contributed to this. But the bottom line is, this little kid, when he was just a little kid, was pretty disempowered. Now that he's 12 or 13, and despite the female hormones, there's still male hormones in him biologically, he's hitting kind of adolescence. He's thinking, wait a minute. When I was a little kid, I felt kind of weak, and I felt kind of this, and I thought, man, maybe I want to be a girl. But now, as a 12, 13-year-old boy, I'm hitting puberty. I'm getting taller, I'm getting stronger, I'm getting muscles. I want to play sports. I want to climb trees. I want to scrape knees. I think I might be able to play rugby. I think I might be able to dunk a basketball. I think my dad was probably some super athlete, giant Australian rugby player monster. And I think I might grow into one of those, and I want to. Now he totally doesn't want to be a girl anymore. Right? And he's got this problem with the boobs and the hormones in him, and he's got to clean all that up. So these stories are not rare, in the sense that there are a lot of stories like this. Go to sexchangeregret.com, for example, Walt Heyer's great site, WaltHeyer, where you can hear his story, where he did this many years ago in the early 80s. Normal guy, changed to a girl, had the surgery, went to hormone, felt bad, switched back, discovered psychology, religion, other factors to what now he's happily married and helping others. And lots of people who are confused by this information are reaching out to him, as well as many people who have his website's called sexchangeregret.com. So many people who have sex change regret reach out to Walt Heyer and try and get some appropriate information and look for some appropriate counseling and remedies. So I wouldn't say the stories are rare, but I would say the reporting on these stories is rare, and that is a sign of some serious corruption in this area. So that's on bone density. And then back to this article, this quote by Dr. Paul Ruse. Quote, "The reality is that there is no long-term data about treating children, and the only data that we have in adults indicates that medical interventions to align the appearance of the body to a transgendered identity does not fix the problem," he said. Yeah, it doesn't fix the problem. It doesn't fix you being unhappy, right? You could say, hey, you don't seem very happy, right? And try this, right? And you could try it, and if it doesn't make you happy and it's harmless, you can try something else. You'd be like, hey, you don't seem happy. Yeah, I'm not too happy. Well, try some yoga. Try some hot tea, right? Try some chamomile, right? Listen to some stand-up comedy on YouTube, right? Watching some comedians. You could try all that stuff, and it's not going to screw you up for life if it doesn't work. Right? If it works, great. If it doesn't work, well, hey, try something else. When it comes to this sort of trans stuff and kids and even adults, it doesn't work. So if you're unhappy going into it, you'll probably be unhappy coming out of it. They say this about a lot of conditions. They say you're the same the same person you were when you were poor as when you're rich. You just have more money to flex. So if you were miserable poor, you'll probably be miserable rich, right? You'll be complaining about, whatever, right? There was a guy at work where I used to work, a software company, and he was a mopey programmer guy, tall, decent looking guy, mopey, but whatever. He bought himself a Mustang for like, $30,000 or something and thought that would make him happy. Nope, just a mopey guy with a Mustang, right? So expensive to find out, but still, same mopey guy with a Mustang. It's the same with this, except this is way more dangerous, way worse for you. So yeah, it says it doesn't fix the problem. It doesn't fix your gender dysphoria. It doesn't fix your issues. If you can fix those issues, and as I said before, if you can go through all of that and you're an adult, say over the age of 21, possibly 25 when your brain has stopped developing, fine. But you have to be comfortable. And if you can't look at any information critical of this, if you're too weak to do that, if you're too messed up, if you're too scared of it, if you're too offended by it, then you shouldn't do it. If you can't look into the risks of something you're doing because you find it offensive that anybody would say there are risks at all, then you are way too screwed up to do it. You can't look at the risks when it comes to scuba diving. If you can't look at the risks when it comes to skydiving, if you can't look at the risks when it comes to driving, if you can't look at the risks when it comes to anything of, making decision X, then you probably just shouldn't do it. Because if you can't look at the risks and be comfortable looking at the risks, then you're too weak to even try it. And it's the same with this type of information. Anybody that won't take this type of information and criticism seriously, whether it's parents of kids or young adults or whomever that's thinking of, quote unquote, trying to change their gender, then you definitely shouldn't. Because until you can get mentally strong enough to be able to do that, then you are not in any kind of shape to make that big of a decision, right? It's like the Nigerian phone scammers, right? The people that call up and say, "Hello, I'm calling on behalf of the Prince of Nigeria. Yes, how are you? Yes, the Prince wants to give you $5 million. Wow, me? Yes, the Prince found you on the internet and found you seem like a good person. He wants to give you $5 million. Wow, that's great. But he needs you to send him $5,000 first. If you send him $5,000, then his money is a little tied up right now. His brother's doing something. It's in some investments. But if you send us $5,000, we'll send you $5 million." Right? And that's how scammers. Often hook people into this. They seduce people into this, right? And if you can't hear the risks of how that it's possible that this is a scam, then you definitely shouldn't go along with it. If you're like, "No, don't say it. I don't want to say it. The Prince of Nigeria loves me. I'm special. I'm a special snowflake. Nope, la 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 la. Don't tell me about how this is a scam. It's a well-known scam. La 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 la." Well, you're probably going to get scammed. It's the same with this and everything else. Back to this article. It says here, the psychological problems associated with gender dysphoria are becoming increasingly obvious, though transgender activists insist the problems exist because children and adolescents are not immediately, quote, affirmed in their new gender identity by parents and other significant people in their lives. So they're saying that if you have gender dysphoria, the psychological condition, and immediately they don't affirm that, then you're being a bad parent. If you don't immediately affirm your child's decision to try and change their genders. That's like saying to someone depressed or suicidal, if they want to walk in front of a bus or jump off a bridge to their deaths, and you don't immediately affirm that that's okay, then you're anti-personist. You're anti-self you're anti-living my truthist. You're anti-whatever, whatever, whatever, right? That's the insanity of this. So Hru's observed that when parents hesitate to begin the controversial hormonal treatments, transgender activists and some physicians accuse them of medical neglect. So there you go. This is the Orwellian, wrong is right, ignorance is strength, war is peace, freedom is slavery. This is the Orwellian. If you don't rush your child into this, that's medical neglect, is what the activists are claiming. So they're not even being responsible. If there were activists that were being responsible, they'll say, well, we'll take a look at the data, take a look at this, go through counseling, see if we can do something else besides this expensive and dangerous treatment. And then after that, after this process, then, then you should move forward. But they're not doing that. They're saying skip all that due diligence. And that is the corruption and the danger. And a lot of this is people that aren't comfortable in their own skin. There's other studies, other talks about this and so on when it comes to gender dysphoria, and even lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgender, sexual, vestites, whatever, right? Many of them are not comfortable in their own skin and comfortable with their decisions, right? There's many mental and physical health issues with respect to that lifestyle. So you can look at AFTAH.org, the Americans for Truth About Homosexuality, where they break all this down. You can look at the great work of Dr. His name's mess with my mind right now. I forget. But there are doctors out there that do reparative therapy. Look up reparative therapy. And they treat people who have unwanted gender confusion or unwanted homosexual attraction. And what they often find is low self-esteem. And what you often find when it comes to people with low self-esteem who aren't comfortable with their decisions is they want external validation. They want external validation. People with good self-esteem typically don't need as much external validation. Is it always nice? Sure. You can't just, no man is an island. You can't just live in your head, right? But they're also more comfortable with questioning and criticism and debate and discussion, right? But the bottom line when it comes to this point is, in many of these cases, many of these drag queen, story hour activists and others, they want to justify their gender dysphoria and their lifestyle choices by saying that kids are born this way, by saying that this is natural, it's genetic, there's no other reason for it, there's no environmental issues, there's no lack of bonding with proper male and female role models, there's no history of abuse in many cases of people who make different gender decisions like lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, and so on, right? When in fact all of that is true. But if you've got strong self-esteem, you can handle that discussion. And even there's gay people and others that put out that information, say, no, it's true. I mean, there's definitely reasons for it. Now, at the end of the day, you want to be a comfortable adult, so whatever you settle on is whatever you settle on. But if you're not comfortable with that discussion, then you are weak and possibly dangerous. And so that's what a lot of this child abuse is a result of. It's people that are not comfortable in their own skin, not comfortable with their own decisions, and they want to use children to justify them. You've got people there. There's even activists, drag queen story hour activists that say we are grooming the next generation. Why? No other group of adults says we need to teach kids about how we, what we do, how we have sex, right? That's insane. This is not something you do to kids as adults, right? But people that are not comfortable with what they're doing, they will often do that. And that's part of what this is. If you can have some 35-year-old fat bearded drag queen who acts fake and silly and, oh, please think I'm hot. What are you going to say? What are you going to say? Huh? You better think I'm hot. And then they go home and they're like, I just bullied him into saying I was hot. Am I really hot? I'm pretty depressed about that. Maybe I'm not really hot. Maybe I just bully people into thinking I'm hot and I'm sexy and I'm this and that. And those people aren't even, really nice to me. They're just patronizing me. Great. Now I feel like crap, right? Those people are the ones who want to say, you can see this behavior in children. Kids are trans, kids are this, kids are gay, kids are whatever. You're born this, you're born that. Now, there's no evidence of that, although they might find some at some point. There might be some predispositions, but they're the ones who are demanding this. So keep in mind, this is selfish, narcissistic, confused, perverted, deviant adults, right? Many of them victims of the same culture, the same bullshit that we're dealing with today. And they, like people who were abused one way or another by the culture or by this, that, and the other, they are now responsible for abusing others. And that's what you're seeing going on here, is you're seeing people that were abused and aren't comfortable with their lifestyle demanding that children reflect that lifestyle to validate their lifestyle as an adult. And that is dangerous. And that's why we've got to protect kids from this, right? You can't have an adult saying, my kid likes, I like pistachio ice cream, and then turn to your kid, hey, does your kid like pistachio ice cream? No, actually, he likes chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, but not pistachio. Your kid better like pistachio ice cream, otherwise I'll feel bad. Are you saying it's wrong to like pistachio ice cream? You're saying I'm scum for liking pistachio ice cream? How dare you? You're pistachio ice cream phobic. Like, it's insane, right? So back to this medical neglect point from Dr. Hruze. Parents need to continue to love their children, he said. They need to continue to affirm their human dignity, yet they shouldn't have to jettison biological reality to be able to put what they're being told into practice in terms of disrupting normally timed puberty. There you go, right? You need to do that, right? And even gay people will be like, damn, I lost my homo homies, right? We used to be cool gay guys. Now all of a sudden the gay people get Pink News and other sort of gay, The Advocate. There's a controversy in gay and lesbian communities because they're comfortable in their own skin, being men or women, just liking men or women liking women. And not the trans people are coming in and saying, no, that's not going far enough. If you're a man who likes men, you better be a woman. And gay guys are going, no, I like men. We're men who like men. You shouldn't turn into a woman. So there's a lot of controversy even in the lesbian and gay communities about the trans issue, right? So back to this article. Writing at the Witherspoon Institute's Public Discourse, attorney Jane Robbins observed those diagnosed with gender dysphoria have high rates of suicide before treatment, with the rate of suicide attempts 9 times the rate of the general population. So before treatment, they're suicidal. And this doesn't make them less suicidal, because after treatment, the studies show the same thing. Back to this article. She noted a study from Sweden, a nation known for its affirmation, in quotes, of transgender individuals, showed that gender-affirming treatment actually, quote, does not reduce the suicide rate for these patients. In fact, their rate of completed suicide was found to be 19 times the rate for the general population. So you're 19 times more likely in Sweden to commit suicide if you are transgender. And they fall all over themselves to affirm it. Oh, it's great. You're trans. It's great. Do you want to perform at our bar? Oh, you can't sing? Don't worry. We'll act like you can anyway. Just come on in, please. We love you. You're our new gods, trans people. Even with all that affirmation in Sweden. Kids, yes, everybody, yeah, of course, it's totally fine. Please. We think this is great. You're better than us, normal people. The rest of us cucked up, cowed Swedes in our cucked up, cowed country. Even with all that, they still commit suicide almost 20 times more often than the rest of the population, right? So it's not a problem of bigotry. It's a problem of being uncomfortable in your own skin. When you're always walking around, I never worry about if I'm good or not, good at being a man or not. I'm good at it. I'm not great at it, but I'm good at it. I'm a working man, not a broken one. So it's not an issue for me. But if I was always worried, gee, did I do this man thing right? Yes, it's tough man, cartoon character, tough version of a man. Or just, oh, no, a little wimpy version of, no, I just can't, I put more bass in my voice. No, nothing. Just, I am what I am, and I am a man, right? Or if you're a woman, I'm a woman, this and that. No. But if you're a man trying to be a woman, maybe one, oh, hi, I'm a woman. Oh, look at me. Oh, I'm such a mess. Oh, my hair. Oh, I'm such a cartoon character of woman. Oh, my God. Oh, look at me. Oh, I'm sashaying. You're always worried about it. And that causes problems, right? So, back to this article. Laidlaw's urging an investigation into the use of drugs like Lupron for treating gender dysphoria in children and adolescents. Quote, I think it's very obvious that the Surgeon General needs to step in and become seriously involved in an investigation as to why drugs like Lupron, which are obviously extremely risky, are being used off-label to arrest the normal development of thousands of healthy adolescent bodies, he told Breitbart News in an email statement. If this were any other, in brackets, non-politicized situation, and this sort of harm was occurring, the doctors and pharmaceutical manufacturers behind it would be investigated immediately, and it would be all over the press. So there you have it. Normal drug kills 6,000 kids, tens of thousands of adverse reactions. Hey, it's all over the press, all over the media. This one with this issue, whatever. You could have a cold medicine that kills a bunch of kids and causes serious harm to tens of thousands of others. What would happen? All over the press, all over the media. Hopefully, these days with the corruption of the press, possibly not too, right? A lot of big pharma advertising when it comes to the news and so on. But because it's this issue, it's going to take normal people to get the word out on and offline, hence the title of this vlog. So that's the first article, excuse me, and I'll put a link to this below so you can verify it and fact check it and check with the hyperlinks and so on and so forth. But that is the first article, thousands of deaths linked to puberty blockers. And this is adults and kids, but thousands of deaths. And now we'll get to the next article from gender.news. This is part of Mike Adams' naturalnews.com family. So Mike Adams, veteran journalist and activist and author, and he's somebody who's got a really good science background, runs his own laboratories. And at naturalnews.com, you can find his main website, and then he's got a bunch of different websites based on different topics, food.news and so on, so that depending on your interests, he collects different articles there. So at gender.news, he's got a bunch of he's got a bunch of articles relating to gender issues, which are, of course, huge today. And as I said at the beginning of this, the reason gender is attacked so much is so you're not comfortable in your own skin, people aren't comfortable near you, nice ladies and gents can't respect each other and teach kids to and communicate well, and we're easier to control. So all this other stuff, you might be watching YouTube videos and listening to podcasts and reading the news and being informed and tweeting furiously and gabbing, social media, Parler, telegramming, Facebook, whatever. All that's great, right? But when it comes to normally, communicating with people offline about this, one of the big reasons people are having trouble is all the gender confusion being sold. Because then guys how do you know you respect each other? If you can't act like ladies and gentlemen, sirs and ma'ams, honeys, if you can't take gender seriously unless you switch, right? If you're supposed to, as an adult, as a parent, or as adults, if men are supposed to be more girly, right? It's like, well, how do you know the guy's a straight up guy, cool guy, right? Or if girls are supposed to be more like men, how are you supposed to appreciate a girl? If she's in your face and tough and like that guy, whatever, right? So we value and respect each other less than if we were badass dudes and fine-ass chicks, and then a couple exceptions in a free country that can kind of do this, that, and the other, right? So Excuse me. But these days, you're supposed to, as a parent, if you you're supposed to raise your kids gender neutral, right? You're not supposed to have a balloon reveal, blue for boys, pink for girls. You're supposed to say, nope, gender neutral. I'm raising my little boy or my little girl gender neutral. Little gray clothing, little gray bag I put him in. Nothing that boys have liked for thousands of years. Not going to give that to my little boy to make him happy. Nothing that girls have liked for thousands of years. Not going to give that to my little girl to make her happy. Nope. Nope. Gender neutral. Gender equal, gender neutral. Forget it. They'll have to figure out what they want to do later on their own, right? Then, when a lot of those kids inevitably switch just to get some attention and something that they like, right? Or for whatever reason, then you're supposed to take it super seriously, right? So you have a little boy, nothing. You have a little girl, nothing. Your little boy wants to be a girl. Oh my goodness, frou-frou, sparkly, smelly, princess tiara, pretty pink dress, Barbie dolls. Oh wow, oh my god. Then you take him being a girl seriously. You don't take your girl being a girl seriously, but your boy wants to be a girl. Then you take all the girly stuff we've known forever that girls like to make them happy, fulfilled, confident girls that can enjoy themselves and be a joy to be around. Then you take it seriously. But until then, nope. Or your little girl. Said, want to be a girl? Nope. Nope. Gender neutral. No, not going to give you all those stereotypes. Not going to hold you down. Not going to make you like one of those girls that everybody in the history of the world has loved. Nope, forget it. Then when she's like, well, but I want to be a boy. God damn, you want to be a boy, man. That's it. Climb your tree, scrape your knee, play baseball, play hardball, throw a football. Yeah, get rough and tumble, get dirty, get your fingernails dirty. Yeah. Go out there, chase some bugs. Here's a rifle. Go shooting. But we're liberals. I know, but you're a girl that wants to be a boy. Go shooting, go hunting and fishing, boy. Right? So that's when you take it seriously. But you're not supposed to take it seriously otherwise. Now that's completely insane. That's insane. You should take it seriously. You have a little boy, make sure he does stuff that little boys like, makes him happy. Little girl, make sure she can be happy being a little girl. And then later on, once they finish puberty and all that sort of thing, then if they want to switch, they want to be gay, they want to do something else, yeah, it happens, right? But do your best to make sure they're happy as a boy or happy as a girl. Do your best at that and see if you can make sure they can be a nice, normal, straight person. And then, at the end of that process, if they want to make a different choice, at least you went through that process to give them a chance to be comfortable in their own skin and comfortable being normal, straight, happy person, right? So the attacks on all this and the acceptance of the attacks on all this is what's screwing all of us up. So gender.news is a great place to sort of look into more information like that. But what I'll do now is I will show you this article from gender.news as part of a relation to this vlog and relating to the dangers when it comes to kids. It says here, gender.news, dumbing down the population. Study finds that transgender hormone treatments lower IQ. From July 26, 2019 by Ethan Huff. And you can see in this photo, there's even a little kid, there's a couple little kids here, Down syndrome kids with a bunch of adult drag queens. And there's even Down syndrome drag shows where they take these poor Down syndrome kids with the roundish faces and the permanently happy, kind of mildly mentally retarded, kids or whatever. And nothing against them. God love them. This is child abuse of them, right? But you take these kids that don't get much attention, that can't act like normal kids, and kids in general want attention, and so you take kids that are quiet, that are autistic, that have Down syndrome, and what do? You say, hey, try this. We'll give you a lot of attention for doing this. And the kids go, okay. And that's where a lot of this trans child abuse comes from, including stuff like this Down syndrome drag show that there is a picture of here. right? And there's other articles on that as well. So, to this article by Ethan Huff from gender.news. If, quote, being your true self, unquote, means attempting to alter your biological sex with hormone, quote, treatments, then your true self is also quite dumb, as a new study has confirmed that gender reassignment chemicals dramatically lower IQ levels, right? Again, you retard your hormonal development. Some of those hormones are going into developing your brain, too. So you're retarding the growth of your male body, and you're retarding the growth of your male brain or female brain, right? And that's part of this process, is dumbing us down. And if we're not so stupid we accept it now, we should take some action on this before we are, right? So back to this article. Published in the journal Frontiers in Human Neuroscience. The paper looked at an 11-year-old boy both before and after he was administered hormone suppressors to become a, quote, transgender. The purpose being to, quote, review the effects of puberty suppression on the brain, white matter during adolescence. So they did a formal study. How do these drugs affect an 11-year-old boy's brain? Right? We're going to take this boy. He wants to take the drugs. Okay, take the drugs. Can we look at your brain to see what these drugs are doing to it? Because we're going to get a snapshot before, a snapshot after, and holy crap, right? It says here, almost immediately upon being given anti-puberty pharmaceuticals, the young boy's intellectual performance began to decrease substantially. The scientists who evaluated the child also reported that they observed, quote, immaturity in his cognitive development, unquote, as a result of taking the drugs. After 28 months of taking the gender-bending chemicals, the child's brain white matter was observed to be, quote, unchanged, which the research team concluded may be related to reduced serum testosterone levels. So basically, the kid's brain wasn't growing, it stopped growing too. Additionally, the boy's global IQ, or GIQ, was found to be, quote, further slightly reduced during the follow-up with, in brackets, hormone disruptor treatment, indicating that gender benders actively work against normal brain development in otherwise healthy young males trying to, quote, transition into, quote, females. Quote, in fact, the low average GIQ together with impairment in the perceptual organization of intelligence and processing speed index presented even before treatment suggests that any neurodevelopmental immaturity may have been potentiated by pubertal suppression, the study further explains. Scientific speak screws you up, right? Quote, some questions emerge from these findings, especially regarding the influence of sex steroids on cognition during puberty. It is likely that the structural and microstructural changes in the brain during adolescence, as discussed above, may interfere on the achievement of complete cognitive potential. So yeah, lots of fancy schmancy scientific speak of saying you'll probably be dumber doing this because this screws up the development of your brain. For more related news about the epidemic of health-destroying transgenderism that's ravaging the West, be sure to check out gender.news, site I'm reading. Transgender demons are targeting innocent youth with LGBTQP propaganda that will destroy their lives. So this is where the author, Ethan Huff, after quoting the studies, now gets into a bit more editorializing about this, and we'll see what he's got to say. Quote, or it says here from Ethan Huff, this type of information is rarely, if ever, disclosed to youth considering a change in the gender department. In fact, because the mental health profession is being co-opted by transgender activists, the agenda is to intentionally not disclose the facts and trick children into ruining their lives for attention. Little kids want attention. You're looking at your phone, you're watching TV as a parent, you give the kid the iPad, and you people not respecting each other well, communicating poorly, men not being men, women not being women, husbands and wives not respecting each other, not feeling like talking to each other, joking around, doing something with the kids, using their precious spare time to spend it with their precious children. So what do the kids do? I want attention. I know. Mommy, Daddy, I want to change my gender. Oh, my goodness. We've got to get all in a huff, especially, excuse me, as liberal parents, brainwashed with all this garbage. Now we pay attention to our kid because we've got to be careful. We've got a new project for our kids. Little boy's little boy. Whatever, kids suck. Pain in the ass. Don't even know why we had them. Little girl, it's a little girl, it's whatever. Can't even be a girl. What's no good at being a girl? She should be more like a man. It's girls, don't be stereotyped. Gender neutral, blah, 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 blah. Then suddenly, when they want to switch genders, parents can get all excited. They got a new project. They can brag to all their friends. Oh my goodness, yes, my little boy wants to be a girl. We're working very hard to make sure he grows up to be the best girl he can be because he was born a girl. Inside, he's a girl. He just happened to be trapped in a male body. So we have to work on this and get him out and get her out of him. And this is so that it is a way for kids to get attention and a way for parents to be involved in their kids' lives. It's just completely insane. And there's lots of evidence showing why it's insane and dangerous and why we should make a big stink and stop it and push back on people that don't want the evidence of the risks out there for whatever selfish or corrupt reasons. Back to this article, the sad reality is that most of these transgender children, once their 15 minutes of fame wear off, will regret their decision later on in life because transitioning back to normal is often impossible due to permanent hormonal damage. And there's a hyperlink to an article talking about kids who regret this later. I talked about the Australian boy, one example among many I've seen. It says here, quote, "It can be a real disaster to hear these stories," says Dr. Miroslav Georgievic, a professor from Canada who's been studying the growing phenomena of, quote, sex change regret from a clinical perspective. Quote, "Those wishing the reversal have spoken to me about crippling levels of depression following their transition, and in some cases even contemplated suicide," he adds, explaining that while it's, quote, "potentially politically incorrect to bring up the types of cases he sees all the time, their stories need to be told," right? So this is a doctor who's like, well, these kids come to me, right? Or the parents come to me, right? The parents might be like, oh, trans propaganda. Yeah, turn my kid, change their gender. And then once it doesn't go well, they can't call the news back. They can't call the New York Times, CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS. When they're switching genders, those news will be all over promoting that. But when it goes badly, they won't return these parents' phone calls. And they got to go see a doctor about, okay, now my kid doesn't want to change genders anymore, and they feel awful, and they've got a ton of health issues as a result of this process. We need some help. And this is a doctor that helps those kids. And yet, as he says, their stories need to be told, even though it's potentially politically incorrect, and many corrupt media organizations will not tell these stories. And that's why it's so important. If you wonder why I get kicked off Facebook for the trans kids issue, I get my YouTube channel deleted for the trans issue, I get kicked off Twitter for the trans kids issue, this all happened to me, all about the trans kids issue. That's why they kicked me off. Facebook, get out of here. Twitter, get out of here. YouTube, 3 strikes in 8 minutes. 1, 2, 3, your channel with 1,000 subscribers, gone. Right? Now I've got a channel with 35 and heavy censorship and suppression. YouTube channel. 35, not 35,000, 35. From what I had 1,000 plus, and it was still suppressed at the time. Within 8 minutes, I got 3 emails from YouTube. 1, 2, 3. Trans kid video, trans kid video, trans kid video, gone. Right? No trans kids, no trans kids, no trans kids, gone. There's a bunch of other controversial stuff on there, a bunch of other stuff not covered by the media. Why jack me and other people for that? Why make it the one thing that adults aren't comfortable speaking about? Why make it the one thing that gets men's manties in a bunch and women's panties in a bunch? Why culturally do that to us? Because it is that dangerous to everyone going along with it and getting corrupted by this incredible corruption. If they can normalize child abuse in your culture, you're living in Sodom and Gomorrah, right? So ultimately, the normalization of child abuse and gender confusion corrupts everybody going along with it. If you knew your neighbor was raping kids and you didn't say or do anything about it, that would corrupt you. This is the same thing. This is corrupting entire cultures. It's corrupting the whole world. this. And that's why it's so important for the corrupt people to push it. Now, they will turn around and attack me and say, nope, it's important for us to protect trans kids. That's why we got to kick you off Facebook, kick you off YouTube, kick you off Twitter, because you bring this up and question it. It's like, no. I'm trying to protect trans kids from being transwashed and screwed up. And I've got the facts and I've got the information. And even if I'm completely wrong, we've got free speech. You should put up your better speech and you should beat my speech and let people decide and make a smart decision. But no, they don't do that. That's why it's so important. That's why it's so dangerous. This is one of the most dangerous weapons they have to screw up everybody today by normalizing child abuse in a variety of ways, and to screw up the next generation of kids, where a few years ago, you go to a typical high school, there might be 1, 2, 3, 4% max random gay kids, right? This kid's is 14, 15, 16, turning out pretty effeminate, probably going to be gay, there you go, right? This chick, pretty butchy, might grow out of it and turn into a, lovely young straight lady, or she might be a dyke, who knows, right? It happened, right? A couple of gay kids when I went to high school, way back in the day, right? Now, you'll get 20, 30, 40% of kids thinking of changing their genders in high schools today. What does that do to the next generation? Well, with all the mental and physical health issues I've outlined here, among many others, destroys them. That's why this is being done. So back to this article, it says here, as for the frontiers in human neuroscience study, even the editor-in-chief of the British Medical Journal, the BMI, now admits that puberty blockers, quote, are being used in a state of profound scientific ignorance. And that's the British Medical Journal, or the British Medical Journal, right? And they were okay with this because of the bullying and the propaganda, and you don't want to be called transphobic or homophobic or whatever phobic. So they go along, but once you see the bodies, once you see enough kids screwed up, once you've got enough hard evidence, even the British Medical Journal, the editor-in-chief of the British Medical Journal, comes out and says they're being used, puberty blockers being used in a state of profound scientific ignorance. So we don't know enough about this, right? And by the way, the previous editor of the British Medical Journal for many, many years came out and exposed a lot of fraud at the British Medical Journal and fraud in the scientific community when it comes to which studies get published and which don't, based on drug sales and corruption and the underwriting of the British Medical Journal and medical conferences. You might be like, but they're the British Medical Journal. They're doctors. They're scientists. Yeah. You know who pays the salaries at the staff of the British Medical Journal? Big Pharma. Big Medical. The medical industrial complex. You know who pays for the conferences where they invite doctors to speak? Just like other industries. The industry. The medical industry. Right? I used to run executive conferences as one of my jobs, right? And my job was to get speakers, VPs of Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 companies, if they had a big enough name or whatever. And I would talk to them, develop their speaking sessions, arrange a panel of like 20 vice presidents. The event would cover their airfare, their hotel, food, everything. We'd go meet with them. Great job, right? But that event was underwritten by big company or by vendors who want to sell stuff to those companies. So the vendors who were like, well, we want to work with these Fortune 500 VP level, mostly, couple of directors, plus others and so on, right? We underwrite this event. So our company made money off the vendors. The VPs had a chance to get together at great resorts and speak to each other as a result of these vendors. And these vendors, aside from the meetings and presentations that the VPs gave to each other about what's going on in the industry, they would have opportunities to meet with these VPs of Fortune 500 and 1,000 companies, right? So my point in saying all that isn't to go into all that for me. My point is to say that the big pharma underwrites the events that host all these medical professionals. And so it's hard for these medical professionals, these doctors and scientists, to really go against them unless they've got some really hard evidence. They see a lot of bodies, they see a lot of corruption, they see and they want to take a stand. And when it comes to the trans kids issue, for the editor-in-chief, the current editor-in-chief, who's not getting fired for saying this, to say that there's a profound scientific ignorance around the puberty blockers issue is a huge step. It means that, in England, and of course other places around the world, they must have so much goddamn evidence of how bad this is that it's safe to say it, right? It's like getting fired for saying it's raining outside when it's raining outside. It's like, no, you just look out your window, it's raining. To not get fired for saying this and censured for and feel safe saying this, it must be like, you see that pile of dead kids? Yeah. Well, okay, because of that pile of dead kids, thanks to these puberty blockers, I can at least tweet in still careful, politically correct language that there is profound scientific ignorance around this issue. Not saying it's wrong, not saying it's right. I'm saying we need to do more study. For them to go that far, there must be a lot of bodies. There must be a pile of messed up kids, for him to feel comfortable saying this. So, back to this post here, or the article. In a Twitter post, the editor of the British medical journal BMI further wrote, quote, "Testosterone is important for normal brain maturation." And then another quote, another tweet, I guess. "This whole thing started out as accepting, sorry. The tweet is, testosterone is important for normal male brain maturation, right? So that's the tweet from the BMI editor. Another quote from an InfoWars commentator from Infowars.com on this. It says here, quote, "This whole thing started out as accepting gay people for who they are," in quotes, "and has transitioned into this insanity with much more to come," one InfoWars commentator wrote in response to the study's findings. And this is another quote, "To be fair, their IQ can't be that high to start with if they think they can overwrite biology with social justice," commented another. This is just average InfoWars readers commenting on articles about this. And then, as more editorializing from gender.news, in truth, transgenderism is a demonic mental illness that's being propagated by the cult of LGBTQP on innocent, impressionable children who don't really know any better. This being the very definition of evil.news and the type of thing warned about in Romans 1. And so there's some Christian interpretation at the very bottom of this article saying, by the way, this is also unchristian, and the Bible warns about how messed up this is, because this is basically like Sodom and Gomorrah, where people, were all messed up, and they destroyed where they lived, and then God destroyed them, right? Now, you might think, okay, well, why did you bring that? No, wait a second. Went through all the science, all the doctors, all the studies, all the medicine, and then from a moral perspective said, by the way, this is also really bad for you from a Christian, biblical, God will hate it and God will hate you for allowing it perspective, which is not necessarily an unhealthy one, as long as it's backed up by material facts and evidence as well. So, anyway, there is from gender.news. These things are making kids dumber by retarding their brains' development as well as their bodies. So I'll put a link to that below as well. And finally, the title of this vlog is called Save Trans Kids, 6,000 Deaths, Lower IQs, and Promote Politicians with Balls. This is a politician with balls. And this is actually good news relative to what's going on. Because as I said in the beginning, you need better people. You need to get public support, independent media, and then mainstream media support. And then from there, you get political support. Then you change policies. And then, boom, you get better policies, better places to live, and better people to enjoy it, right? But you got to be better people to do that. And if you can do that, you'll get it. If you don't, you're screwed. And as part of that, we should promote politicians that have the balls to speak on these things, to make it normal, right? If this politician can say this on behalf of their constituents, the taxpayers who pay their salary, who give them their job, who give them their responsibility for the conditions of people where they live, then this should be normal. This should be the standard, the gold standard of politicians. If this politician can do it, then every politician should be able to do it. There's no excuses for any politicians anywhere not to do this. It's not always easy. There's pressure, there's pushback, there's whatever. There's different lobby groups that'll attack you. There's the press that might demonize you. But my point is, if we promote politicians like this and stories about politicians like this doing the right thing, then that will encourage more people to do it, and more people to do it, and more media to cover it, and then more politicians to do the same thing. Because they want to get elected. I mean, ultimately, they want to get elected. They get $100,000 a year. They get a bunch of perks and benefits. They get a bunch of, opportunities. They get celebrity. They say politics is Hollywood for ugly people, right? So you do get a bunch of people. Oh, the mayor's here. Oh, the mayor's here. Oh, they make a big stink. Oh, the member of parliament. Oh, the congressman so and so. Oh, senator so and so. You get a bunch of perks for being a politician, but you got to get elected first. And a lot of times they spend a little bit of time governing, dealing with their constituents' concerns and so on, and a lot of time trying to raise more money for their reelection, meeting with different lobby groups, special interest groups, stakeholder groups, trying to solicit donations and so on, right? And so if you make the gold standard for being a politician, saving kids from gender confusion, radical sex ed, trans washing, adults abusing them to justify their lifestyles when they have no business messing with everyone's kids. They should just be free to do what they want without saying, no, if you don't teach your kids this, then you're transphobic. How am I transphobic? Do what the hell you want. Don't teach my kids that. But I didn't stop you from doing that. You want to be a dude that wants to be a girl? Go. You want to be a girl that wants to be a guy? Go. Shoot. Do your thing. Hopefully you get along with those people. But you don't turn around and say to me, I got to teach my kids about what you do. Right? That's bullshit. And that's what we got to fight against. So here at Breitbart News is another article. AZ or Arizona House Speaker, quote, radicalized sex ed, quote, grooming children to be sexualized. It says masturbation, oral, vaginal, anal, sexual rights, right? This is... There's a shot of a little girl and a bunch of gross words she should never be forced to hear. And this is by Dr. Susan Berry from September 26th, 2019. And it says here, Arizona House Speaker Rusty Bowers, Republican, continued his attack over the past week on state comprehensive sex ed standards that he says sexualize children and place them at a high risk. Bowers said he viewed materials that are part of a proposed comprehensive sex ed CSE curricula that are, quote, grooming children to be sexualized, reported Tucson.com. According to the report, Bowers said that materials he saw in the presentation put on at a Gilbert charter school by Family Watch International have drawings of people engaged in sex acts. The speaker called the materials, quote, a complete change, unquote, in how sex education has been taught for 40 years. Quote, I don't need to sexualize children and tell them how to masturbate, the State House Speaker said. It's way beyond where we need to be. Bowers also accused Democrat Superintendent of Public Instruction Kathy Hoffman of being a radical. Yeah, we've known for years, don't teach kids about sex. You can't walk around anywhere with a petition saying we need to teach little kids more and more about more and more types of sex. That's insane, right? And yet it's now being normalized. And this isn't just basic reproduction. This is every single type of sexual deviancy. What was once the most private topic, now the most public topic, not even among adults, but among children. Then you'll have little children fooling around with each other because they learn all these things. They see all these images of people having sex, encourage them to masturbate. Oh, you want to jerk off in class, little Johnny? Okay, go over there, do it underneath a blanket. Oh, the blanket makes me feel embarrassed. Okay, fine, no blanket. Just whip your little ding-ding out and start wanking it. Fine, whatever. It's insane. And broadly speaking, Bertrand Russell, famous philosopher from the early 20th century, early 1900s, he apparently talked about and wrote about, and among others who've done this, that they should try and sexualize the youth and promote promiscuity. Because if you promote promiscuity, then and more young people, teenagers and so on, have sex with more and more people, they found, as part of studies and analysis and research, that the more sexual partners you have, the less likely you are to permanently bond with someone. So if you're two Christian virgins who've never had sex with anyone else, the chances of you two staying together and having a successful marriage and relationship and not getting divorced and separated and screwing over your kids like that are way higher than if you've had 1,000 sex partners each. And you're like, well, I'm a man, have I slept with 1,000 women? Oh, I'm a woman, I've slept with 1,000 men. But now I'm, late 20s or 30s or whatever, feel like getting married. Yeah, I feel we should get married and have kids. The odds of you deciding to do that are very low. And the odds of you staying married after you've done that are also very low. So it furthers divide and conquer, no more families, everybody's a ward of the state goals. It furthers population control goals because people aren't going to get married earlier and have more kids and have strong, stable, functioning families. And the family is the number one unit of protection. Friends come and go, coworkers come and go. Family is forever, for better or worse. And so because family is forever and that bond is always there, families will fight and kill and die for each other. And if you destroy the family, then who's going to do that for anyone? So we are much more easier to control by the state, by the establishment, by the globalist, communist, New World Order, whatever, right? So that's just a sidebar in terms of why they want to sexualize children as part of the sort of broader understanding I'm bringing to this article and topic. So back to this article. Kathy Hoffman, Democrat Superintendent of Public Instruction, she promoted the changes in the sex ed curriculum, but was unsuccessful in her attempt to have the State Board of Education change the state standards for sex education in Arizona at this time. So she tried, but she couldn't, right? According to Tucson.com, Hoffman asked the state board to review changes in sex education policies. Subsequently, the board repealed a requirement that sex ed classes in Arizona, quote, promote honor and respect for monogamous heterosexual marriage, unquote. So they say you can't promote honor and respect for a monogamous heterosexual marriage. That you're not allowed to teach. But teaching little kids anal beads and lubricant and vaginal and fisting and straight sex and gay sex and lesbian sex and trans sex, all of that is fine. But teaching honor and respect for monogamous heterosexual marriage apparently offends people into something different, or it's stereotypical or whatever garbage, right? And this is also the difference between conservatives and liberals. Conservatives try and preserve what works to make us happy. Liberals push for changes to make us happy. Globalists often use liberals because they want to have radical changes to make us easier to control. Sort of socialism, communism is basically socialism in a hurry. So it's the same thing. And so when it comes to Ms. Kathy Hoffman trying to change sex ed, she is part of a liberal democratic culture, as opposed to the conservative Republican culture, that gets more and more credit for the more and more changes they make, ostensibly to help more and more marginalized or disenfranchised people, even if it means screwing over everybody else, possibly because everybody has it good, and so they have to accommodate these other people, when in fact, you should have most people straight, great at it, cool, this is the way we do things, and then others, LGBT, whatever, this, that, you want to do something else, you want to have sex with your couch, don't harm anybody else or animals, fine. We're still in favor of freedom, but we want to make sure we can be happy and normal. That is ideal. So it's not about demonizing LGBT, whatever, unless they're attacking you, or certain corrupt people as part of that community are attacking you. Then you got to go back at them, because otherwise they'll kick the crap out of you, as is happening today with these ideas. So Hoffman, the Democrat, then asked the board to consider a change proposed by Democrat State Senator Martin Quezada that would remove language currently banning the teaching of, quote, abnormal deviant, or unusual sex acts and practices. So they're saying there's laws in Arizona that say we cannot teach children abnormal, deviant, or unusual sex acts and practices like this, that, and the other, plus, of course, pedophilia. This, as I said earlier, softens kids up for pedophilia, giving them all this sexual information, sexual imagery. Adults in a position of authority, like teachers, or any adult really, is in some position of authority over a kid, and so kids are inclined to listen and want to do the right thing by you, if they're not just being a bit mischievous. And yet, they want to remove language banning the teaching of abnormal, deviant, or unusual sex acts and practices. That's how insane the sort of radical left, corrupting normal liberals and everybody else through their control of different institutions, media, education, academia, and so on. That's how crazy this gets. So the opposite is, so we should teach children abnormal, deviant, and unusual sex acts and practices? Oh, don't call them that. Don't call them that. Okay, then what? Fine. They're all normal. Yes, little kids are supposed to... What you do in the privacy of your bedroom is not the state's business. But you shouldn't be making it other people's kids' business. That's how insane this is. So back to this article. After significant opposition to the latter change, state board members dropped the proposal. So they were going to ban, or they were going to remove language banning teaching of abnormal, deviant, or unusual sex acts and practices, but then they dropped that because there was a lot of pushback, right? And you can push back against this. This is a great story relative to what's going on. Arizona Central reported, the proposed changes were developed with a group of stakeholders, including LGBT groups such as GLSEN, teachers, school board members, and other individuals, Quezada wrote in a text message. Quezada wrote in a letter to Hoffman, quote, we can and should go further. So he wrote, he convened stakeholders to recommend more changes. And then when Kathy Hoffman promotes this, I don't have any question it's about radicalizing children and their sexuality, he asserted. In response, Hoffman called the speaker, that's Rusty Bauer, the guy who's against all this crap, speaker's comments, quote, abhorrent and reprehensible and without any basis in reality. So again, it's about how bad you feel. That's on the liberal side of things, right? And this is also a male-female dynamic. Men are naturally more conservative, resistant to change. Women are naturally more liberal. Oh, what do I got to do to get along? What are we wearing to this party? What do I got to say? How do I make sure people like me? I don't want to get into an argument. Don't want to get into a fight. Don't want to get into a physical confrontation, And so, the normalization of everyone being a messed up girl is contributing to this. Because then, while Rusty Bowers can say this is awful, we shouldn't do this, we got to save our kids, Hoffman can say that's abhorrent and reprehensible and without any basis in reality. Now, that's just her freaking out and trying to get sympathy and empathy for freaking out over this. And that's not a good way for adults to be in charge and make policy. If you can't calmly debate this, if your point is that you're a mess when it comes to debating different sides of this issue, then you shouldn't be in charge. You're too messed up to be in charge, right? If you can't take these concerns seriously, if you just want to talk about how bad you feel, how offended you are, how messed up you are or other people are, you are not mature enough to be in charge of us. Go over there, get your shit together, and good luck. And she continued, this Democrat woman, Kathy Hoffman. She accused Bowers of, quote, amplifying conspiracy theories pushed by known hate groups. That's all garbage. Science backs this up. Family values that have raised great families back this up. Religion, conscience, morality backs this up. A bunch of stories of kids screwed up by this information backs this up. But she says conspiracy theories and hate groups. So it's conspiracy theory. Well, what's conspiracy? 2 or more people doing something illegal or immoral in secret or planning to, right? That happens every day, all over the place. Right? It's cops show up at some place got robbed, they start coming up with conspiracy theories. Right? Okay, so that door's broken, and that thing's broken, and how many people? Oh, looks like there might be 2 people here. I wonder, was it an inside job? Was the owner? Is this an insurance scam? It's perfectly normal. It's the most common charge in a court of law. conspiracy to commit fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracy to commit bribery, conspiracy to, it's perfectly normal, right? Now, I'm not saying every conspiracy theory is worth celebrating, but the idea of thinking about whether or not some people are secretly doing something corrupt is the basis for police, law, journalism, and thoughtful adults. Who are like, well, politicians are corrupt. Don't say that. It's conspiracy theory. Otherwise, they'd tell us. It's like, no, you have to theorize, right? Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Canada gave most of the mainstream Canadian media $600 million as a bailout and wants favorable coverage before the election this month in October of 2019, right? Yeah, you could be like, I wonder if there's a conspiracy there to pay off the media. You'd have to come up with some sort of theory of how that money is connected to how he's going to be covered in this upcoming election, or has been covered for the last few months. Or you could say, nope, not going to do it. So if you can never conspiracy theorize, you can never find any corruption, and that's why they demonize the label so much. This started being demonized shortly after the John F. Kennedy assassination, November 22nd, 1963, when there was a bunch of conspiracy theories about who really killed Kennedy, besides one lone nut, Lee Harvey Oswald, from a weird angle with a gun, and blah, blah. And there's a whole bunch of evidence that others were involved, the grassy knoll, how did the bullet go this way? And they started saying, don't be a conspiracy theorist. You don't want us to figure out who killed the president? Don't be a conspiracy theorist. We loved our president. Don't be a conspiracy. Fine, fine, fine. We will not try to figure out who killed the president of the United States, who we loved and thought was doing a great thing for us. That's how powerful that demonization is, right? And hate groups. Hate group is they can call you a hate group if you don't agree. I could call them hate groups too. It's stupid, because you should be allowed to hate something. You shouldn't be allowed to threaten people and encourage violence. But you should be allowed to hate people, hate ideas, hate whatever the hell you want. And other people should be like, so? Somebody like, man, I hate your channel. I hate your vlog. I hate your shirt. I hate your tie. I was like, well, that doesn't feel very good, but you got a good reason why? Maybe I can change. No. Yes? Great. Then constructive criticism might help me out. No? Oh, you're a moron. You're a mess yourself. The hell do I care? So hate itself is not necessarily a bad thing. And the opposite of hate is having to love everything. And if you love everything, that means you've got no standards, no individuality. Sort of like Brave New World, where we're all corporate clones. And if you're bored on a subway, you can just look at the person next to you and say, I want to have sex with you. It's like, we're total strangers. It's like, yeah, but you can't say you don't want to have sex with me. That's rude. All right, fine, we'll put the little tubes together and we'll have virtual sex. And that's kind of where this goes, where you have to accept anything, including pedophilia. Why? Because you can't hate anything. You can't hate anything. You can go to a bar and you could have some guys that aren't even trying to look like girls. They're trying to look like clowns, scary demon lizard clowns, whatever. And they can strut around, woo, look at me, covered in glitter, looking like a lizard and looking like a demonic clown, Satan, whatever. Look at that. Oh, look at this, my penis is out. Oh, look at that, I'm jerking off into your beer. Yeah, how cool. And you can be like, yep, this is great. This is a great event. I'm so glad I paid cover and I bought a beer. And this creepy weirdo pervert, running around, shaking his ass, jerked off into my fries. Nope, can't say I don't like it. You'd have to go along with everything. And that's partly why this is pushed so much. The idea of hate and hate groups, and you can't hate anything because it makes you accept everything, right? That's the danger in it. Is the opposite. So I got to love anything? Yeah. So if this guy, licks his finger and sticks it up my butt, don't hate that. It's like, I don't even know who he is. Don't hate that. Oh, for Christ's sakes. Anyway. And anyone else's for that matter. Okay, so back to this article. Family Watch International sponsored the Forum on Comprehensive Sex Ed Curriculum. The forum included a presentation of CSE programs developed by various organizations that have embraced gender ideology and require children to be taught that gender is a, quote, spectrum, and biological sex is subservient to gender identity. Again, this doesn't give kids a chance to be good at being boys or girls, and happy with each other. This is constant confusion about it. If you're like a boy, like, hey, ready guys, let's go. Oh, it's a girl. Okay, we shouldn't bark as loud. Fine. We'll just do whatever, bump into each other, not men useful, women special, not grow up to be, value each other, validate each other, communicate well, bond with each other. No, no, no. This is sold to screw all that up, the gender spectrum, not to help a couple of kids that might be confused. And back to this article, the pro-family organization has been named, quote, a hate group by the disgraced Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC, that was recently accused of racism, corruption, and sexual harassment by a group of its employees, as reported by the New York Times in March. Yeah, the Southern Poverty Law Center, it is a group that identifies hate groups. They themselves are a corrupt organization that does this specifically to advance the radical leftist globalist agenda. And so they can't be trusted. Just because they say, they call you a hate group, it's a badge of honor when it comes to a group this corrupt. Child Protection League Action in Minnesota also recently led a rally against CSE state standards. And there's a tweet from them here. Bowers, back to the speaker in Arizona, the politician with balls, referred to a book titled It's Perfectly Normal that was discussed during the forum. The illustrated book, which is recommended by Planned Parenthood and intended for fourth graders, describes sexual intercourse as, quote, having sex that, quote, can involve the penis and the vagina, or the mouth and the genitals, or the penis and the anus. And I've seen this. I've seen screenshots of this. And they've got little cartoons of kids jerking off. Is this normal? They've got cartoons of kids looking down at their genitals, and it shows clearly penises and vaginas in cartoon form, like children's book form, and it's titled "It's Perfectly Normal." Right? This is insane. You can see a group called massresistance.org, massresistance.org, that does a great job on these issues. PAFE.ca, ParentsAsFirstEducators.ca, does a great job in the province of Ontario in Canada. And look for groups like this where you live, because they're doing a great job for kids in your community. And even if you're not a parent, if you're going to live there, you can't see the whole place get screwed up. And so that's important. Back to this article, Planned Parenthood boasted nearly 4 years ago the group is now working with LGBT activist groups, quote, to call for LGBTQ inclusive sex ed. And there is the Planned Parenthood tweet. And they're the ones, the International Planned Parenthood Federation in 2011 had an exclaimed document at the United Nations level and with the United Nations saying children have sexual rights, children are sexual beings, we need to promote children's sexualities. That was back in 2011, and you can look that up online, IPPF exclaim XCLAIM document. You can find it. You can find the website PDF where they proudly say children are sexual beings and children have sexual rights. So this is part of their corrupt agenda as a corrupt organization. According to the Arizona Mirror, Rusty Bowers, the speaker fighting this stuff, the ballsy speaker fighting this stuff, said Planned Parenthood has, quote, created the business plan of hell, unquote, by developing and overseeing comprehensive sex education programs in public schools that ultimately lead to high-risk sexual behaviors and pregnancy, both of which land students back at Planned Parenthood for STI treatments and abortions. So basically, yeah, Planned Parenthood saying we're going to sexualize kids, they're going to start having sex, then when they want abortions, they're going to come back to Planned Parenthood to get abortions and STD or STI treatments, sexual disease treatments. So they're basically doing this in part for their own business model, which is insane. The speaker said this cycle simply helps Planned Parenthood's bottom line. Taylor Tucker, spokeswoman for Planned Parenthood Arizona, responded to Bowers, Arizonans are tired of hearing this kind of rhetoric. Again, it's just generic garbage that they come back with. U.S. Parents Involved in Education, USPIE, a national organization devoted to the return of local control of education, says in a statement that CSE, the group pushing this crap, is a blatant intrusion into a traditional family domain and a dangerous assault on the health and innocence of children. And, quote, we urgently encourage parents to retake control of their children's sex education, the group asserts, adding that the type of CSE programs that are mandated by some states are, quote, rights-based approaches that are politically influenced. They entail, quote, a great deal more than just teaching children and youth about anatomy and physiology, sexual intercourse, and human reproduction, USPIE warns. USPIE warns. Finally, Rusty Bowers, the speaker in the state legislature in Arizona in the U.S., said local boards decide on sex ed curricula for their students. Arizona requires that parents, quote, opt into the program. Bowers added that some school districts are not providing sufficient information for parents about the nature of their sex ed programs. And it's true, and by the way, even though there's a opt-in or opt-out policies, I know, for example, in my home province of Ontario and others, that this is all done incrementally. And so initially they say, well, if you don't like the sex ed, opt out. But then, a few months or as soon as they think they can get away with it politically with the sort of brainwashing going on, they say, nope, now you can't opt out. Right? Because if you opt out, you're transphobic, your children need to learn this, or they'll beat the crap out of some random trans person like a criminal later, whatever. They take it away. And then they give teachers, because that's what's happened here, and then they give the teachers the latitude to teach it anyway, whenever they want, however they want. So it's not even like this, sex ed class is from 2:30 to 3:15. Okay, I'll arrange for my kid to go to the library during that time to avoid it, and then come back for regular reading, writing, arithmetic lessons. It's like, no. They give teachers latitude to sort of introduce it into math. They say, well, if two penises are going into a vagina and one penis is going into a bum, how many penises is that? 3, right? Like they give them latitude to work it into other parts of the curriculum because they keep pushing and pushing and pushing. So keep in mind, even if you're like, well, what are you going to do? You can opt out if you're really serious about it and whatever. It's like, no. They will, if they get away with this, they're going to push for more soon. So that's important to note. So anyway, I'll put links to these 3 articles below, but I hope that clarifies health risks of puberty blockers, mental health risks, lowered IQ, and promoting politicians with balls and eggs, for that matter, who are fighting against this is kind of the ideal thing for us to do, because this is incredibly important. This is sort of a watershed moment in history. This is one of those, they're coming for your kids. Well, as you can clearly see, they are. And what adults do, parents and other adults do, when they're coming for your kids, defines you, right? If somebody's gonna, steal your wallet, right? Some mugger's like, hey, I want your wallet, right? They give them your wallet. If someone's gonna steal your kid, fight them to the death, scream your head off, right? That's basically what this is. And that's basically what we have to do. So online InfoWar, fine. Offline InfoWar, great. Promote Be Nice, which everyone likes. Make sure people get along. Polite at the mall, polite here, polite there. Nice ladies and gents. Respect each other, communicate well, fantastic. Nobody's against that. Then it's easier for people to say or hear get bad guys. They're more empowered. They don't stop you. They don't glass over. They don't freak out. They're not all screwed up because they're generally in a good mood, acting empowered with other empowered people. And then usual meetings, meet and greet tables, posters, flyers, and more, and get her done where you live. That's my advice. And there you have it. BK Black Krishna for manforwars.com. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and get in touch as you'd like. Hope this helps, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.